The Stadium Heads Big Sky Stadiums episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times your entry with their brand new Pick 8. Sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Yes, they do have college football action. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCE. SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm has got, they're always loading up for golf. They got a ton of great stuff. The British Open going on right now. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm.
Hey, this is Bill Romanowski. You're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Have something new coming like that. Okay, that can be done in any case in education. More education and more informed people. That's the way it is in everything. Young men, they ask me advice, and I always tell them, get as much knowledge as you can.
Stadium Heads, man.
The granddaddy of them all, the famed Rose Bowl, jammed with the color of over 100,000 fans for its 67th renewal.
And the weather here today at Notre Dame Stadium, in a word, it is cold, but it is football weather. The temperature 37 degrees, humidity 79%. Forecast cloudy for light rain later on this afternoon.
The average person doesn't know what a good stadium is. They might think they know what a good stadium is, but they think just, oh, our seats are nice. It's so comfortable. We have a 10,000-inch screen we can watch the replay on while we're watching the game, and we got a waiter coming over to take our orders, right? And there's 20 million bathrooms close to us. That's not what makes a good stadium. A good stadium is you know, the look of it, the feel of it, the history of it, the soul of it. That's what makes a good stadium. That's what I mean when I say we're stadium heads. We are stadium heads.
They get to run around. Now those people, they shouldn't even be there. That doesn't even count. If you can't get out in the elements, you shouldn't even go to the game. That's the worst thing. Those cars, boxes up there, and dome stadiums and stuff. We don't need that, right?
Welcome to sunny El Paso, the 52nd Sun Bowl, and now
this ancient facility is one of the great settings in all of college football. Neyland is now in its 87th year.
That's what we are, though. We are stadium heads. Welcome back to the Stadium Heads Big Sky edition. Yes, our first FCS edition. I'm excited to talk all these Big Sky stadiums and Big Sky football and FCS football. That's where I feel like you find out that you separate the real from the fake. All right. If you are digging some FCS football, which is just so undercovered and so underrated, in my opinion, then I think you'll dig this episode. Yeah. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, that's fair too. My name is Colby Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
Nobody knows nothing. Somebody knows. Double the price, but no one touches Dundee.
Big Sky football. Absolutely fantastic stuff, folks. YouTube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. Get on over there. I've been at least to the stadiums for some games or outside of the stadiums. A decent chunk of these stadiums. So excited to talk about those. I'll tell you who's been to pretty much like every single football game in the history. You know when Georgia Tech beat Cumberland 225-0? This guy may have been there because he's doing crazy travel all the time. He is the most interesting man in college football without a doubt. And also ESPN said this about him.
They wanted to shout out Michael Barker. You can follow him on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour. This is his 84th college football game of the 2023 season. He said he's going to end at 90 college football games he's attended this year with the college football national title in Houston. And so, again, He's out there with everybody.
He's like
wet
US
weather.
Postal Service. Rain, sleet, snow, it doesn't.
Yes, I give you Michael Barker, aka College Football Campus Tour. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. And for a while, we've been talking about we're going to get to FCS stadiums. We're going to get to FCS stadiums. And we are here. And, you know, I like your analogy, separate the men from the boys. This is where you test and you dig your deep knowledge of college football. And, you know, during the pandemic, they played a spring 2021 season rather than the fall. And it really got me involved in FCS football. I went to 29 games during the season, went through the whole playoff bracket and absolutely fell in love with it. And there's some great stadiums, and, you know, there's no better conference to start with our first FCS show than the Big Sky, because they do everything right in college football from an FCS perspective. But I will tell you, they do push the boundaries of the usual criteria for a stadium head with domes and colored fields, and we'll get into all that stuff. But very cool conference, special place in my heart. Excited to talk about it.
You know, they used to have North Dakota in this conference and Southern Utah. North Dakota, you know, whatever, it doesn't mean it. But Southern Utah is one that, like, I think it fits. I kind of wish they would have stayed in the conference, but you ask that to hardcore Big Sky fans, they're like, no, drop the dead weight. Overall too, I mean, like Montana State, Eastern Washington, Weber State, Sac State scored some major wins against the FBS. I mean, I know Montana State has knocked off Colorado before. I think they knocked off a couple others. They might knock off New Mexico to open this season. Montana won at Washington a couple years ago. Eastern Washington, I know has. I think they're probably going to be favored against Nevada this year. They took Fresno State to overtime a year ago. They've scored some major wins. They won a national championship. You know,
a couple others. Sac State destroyed Stanford at Stanford, and Idaho beat Nevada handily last year. So there's two more.
Dude, Weber beat Utah State like 35-7 a few years ago.
I remember that.
And Northern Arizona beat Jed Fish in Arizona. So it's just, if you're sleeping on this conference, think it's not good football, you're delusional. It's really good football. Excited to break it all down, folks. Look, I want to tell you, you are listening to the Stadium Heads podcast, Big Sky edition. We're part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and they're getting you ready. The Sports Gambling Podcast is getting you ready for college football with their conference previews, which I'm featured on all of those. Tune in wherever you get your podcasts or the SGPN app, which is free to download in the App Store and Google Play Store. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride. All right, we are back talking Big Sky football, and just like usual, if you haven't caught our other episodes, they're all out there, folks. All right, we have gone through all of the conferences in the FBS, so go check those out. If you're a Big Ten fan, if you want to know about the Big Ten stadiums, SEC stadiums, maybe you're an AAC stadium guy, you love Mikey Stadium or something, all that is out there. Every single conference, go listen to it in the FBS, all available for you. YouTube, you know, iTunes, Spotify, you know, I recommend the viewing experience, but the audio's, you know, still good too, I think. And with that, let's jump into it, because this is kind of how we start every episode. We look at Michael's travels, as and by the way, make sure you are following him on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour, because the guy, once the season cranks up, I think, you know, you're gonna be fascinated if you follow him. But I mean, even in the off season, he does a lot of cool things that I think you'll dig. So at CFB Campus Tour on Twitter. And yeah, let's get into this mess. Let me just remove this layer here. And let's also do this. Jumping into it. Look, Cal Poly and Eastern Washington come up first in the alphabet. He's been to both stadiums. It's just you haven't been there for games, correct?
Yeah. So in the FCS, there's now 129 schools. I've been to a game at 78. The Big Sky, I've visited all of them. I've been to a game, all of them but 3. Eastern Washington and Northern Arizona are tentatively on my 2024 schedule. There are still some moving parts right now. I'm trying to hold off, but I would say around August 10th, I'm going to start putting out games, and those will probably be early in the season. So, but other than that, been to all the stadiums for a game, some of them for playoff games. And, you can't accomplish big traveler goals in 1 year. And to have a mini goal accomplished of seeing a game at every Big Sky school would be great. So I'm only 3 away, and, they're fun every time. So, yeah, we're getting close. But those couple campus visits, but no game yet.
So I used a couple photos, probably like 5 or 6, I think, on this episode of like stuff like that. Normally we use all of Michael's photos, but with the exception of ECU, which I just happened to go a little crazy with. But this one, just about 5 or 6, just to show you what the field would be like. The last time you were in Moscow was last season when the Albany Great Danes knocked them off in the playoffs. Also, the last time you were in Pocatello was when Western Colorado came in 2019. The last time you were at Washington-Grizzly Stadium there in Missoula, Montana was last season against Furman. That was, I think, one of the best college football games of the entire season. You were last in Bozeman checking out Montana State Bobcats when the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State came in there. You alluded to Northern Arizona as one that you're looking forward to getting to this year. Haven't been there for a game. Northern Colorado, Greeley. You caught the Idaho Vandals in Greeley a season ago. You went out to Hillsboro Stadium to catch Portland State 2 years ago as they hosted Sac State. Michael also went to Sacramento State to catch Incarnate Word. Was that a playoff game or just a non-con game?
That was a playoff game, and it's actually 2022.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
2022. He was there to catch Incarnate Word at Sac State, and he was in Davis, California, to check out UC Davis against Eastern Washington in 2021, and then Weber State as the Montana Grizzlies came in there in 2019. So let's jump into this. Cal Poly Mustang Memorial Field, San Luis Obispo, California, 89 years old, seats 11,075. So when did you visit? I know you visited here because I got some photos that you took like this.
Yeah. So I live about 3 hours north of San Luis Obispo. So, 2017, I drove down for UCLA, Texas A&M on a Sunday, that 44-10 comeback where Josh Rosen threw 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, won that. So I stopped at Cal Poly then. I just did a campus visit about a year or two ago. They were putting in new turf, which you see there. So I always try to stop. I mean, it's a beautiful drive, and they've done a lot of upgrades to the stadium, and they have more going on. But I think I've been on campus at it was Alex G. Spano Stadium. They just changed the name recently to Mustang Memorial, which we like. I've been to the stadium 2 or 3 times.
The reason why I asked that, I've been outside of the stadium. I've never been inside, but John Madden, after he passed, I want to say in the past like 14, 16 months, right? Or maybe it was 2 years. He donated, I believe it was $30 million. Does that sound accurate? He donated a large amount of money. I forget how much money.
Well, right now there is an end zone project going on. It's to build the John Madden Football Center. It's a $45 million project. It's going to be a 33,000 square foot locker room, weights, meeting, lounge, all that stuff. And it began in last year at the end of the season, and it should be done by the start of last year. So he donated a whole bunch of money, which is awesome. And they're going to change the stadium. It will take out the end zone bleachers, but it's going to give this place a modern feel. And they have a Coach Wolf is there, and they're making progress. They brought in I think it was Heward, the quarterback. He's a 6'5" lefty, had a great year. So they're trying to do things not just with the program, but with the facilities, and with Coach Madden's donation is really going to help a lot.
While you were talking, and I agree, I just Googled, $30 million donation by John Madden Estate. That is awesome, because this is a program, by the way, that they used to run the triple, and they were really good for a while. But it's where John Madden played, and I believe he might have been a GA. I can't remember. I know Mike Leach coached here. So and Brent Brennan, Arizona's current head coach, coached there for a little bit. It's got a pretty rich history. When you actually do a deep dive on some of the coaches that have been there, some of the players that have been there. So the reason why I asked that also is because I'm going to show a few photos of what is planned, and I wasn't sure what you've seen and not, but I can tell you this, man, I like it. San Luis Obispo and just Morro Bay and stuff is just really cool to me. I think it's beautiful. If you get a chance in California, just go up there in general for the natural beauty of it. But this thing now, what's cool is you took a photo of this, and I saw their original illustrations of them doing this, and I almost put that in this thing. But dig that statue of the Mustang, and yeah. So this is without any paint on the field. So that was a different trip than when you went. Right?
Because this is grass, and you can see that they put in the turf. And where I'm standing here in the end zone, these bleachers are not going to exist anymore. So that's where the football center is going to be. And that first photo you showed, there's views of what is Bishop's Peak and Cerro San Luis, and it's a beautiful setting. And when we think Big Sky, what are we thinking? We're thinking Montana. We're thinking Weber State. We're thinking the high elevation in Flagstaff. Well, this is not anything at elevation. It's not anything up in the cold weather, but it's a beautiful setting, like you mentioned. They just came out with their kick times about a week ago. They're playing late October, early November games with 5 p.m. kickoffs. And when you go across the board and you look at FCS, the schedules right around October 1st, everybody's playing at 12 or 1. Nobody's playing a night game, but that's California. You get to take advantage of that weather. And for me, I will say the main reason I haven't been there for a game yet is because you really cannot 2 for 1 on a Saturday at Cal Poly. Fresno is about 2.5 hours away, and it's really cutting it close. So in the next year or two, I'm going to be less concerned about making sure I do 2 games on every Saturday, because I'm going to try to finish up my goal with some of these ones that are isolated by themselves, like Maine and UT Martin and Cal Poly. So, but it offers a setting that is pretty unique in the Big Sky, because warm places are, UC Davis, Sac State, they don't have views. Flagstaff's playing indoors, so it's definitely a cool setting, and I'm not surprised to hear that so many people either started or had part of their coaching or playing career originate at Cal Poly.
Yeah, and I just want to show a couple of the ones. Yeah, this is this your photo, or is this the one? I can't remember if this is the one I put up.
Photo. That's not my photo.
So this is the one that they had that was incomplete. As you see, the John Madden Football Center. Yeah. And then this right here, this was their announcement, I think, their press conference regarding this. And this is from a game. That's when it was the old Spanos Stadium. But like I said, or like you said, that's changed. This is a shot, I believe, from you, correct?
Yeah, that's for me. So when they were doing, you don't know when they're putting in turf, and you drive down there and the field is tore up, so it's not going to make the best pictures. But again, this is probably 2022. You're showing photos from the dedication ceremony or the announcement ceremony in 2023. So it's 2 examples of huge upgrades the program is doing with their football stadium, which we love.
And this shot, dude, I grabbed this from the internet and I go, this is fucking fantastic, man. Yep. This, to me, I'm like, I need to get up there, and it also fits perfectly with the Big Sky. When you think of Big Sky country, not just the conference, you think of mountains and just open, the West, just beautiful. The West, if you've ever driven cross country in the West, this fits that narrative to me. And I tell you, man, doing this exercise, because I had been outside the stadium, and it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. But man, you see a couple shots like this, I was like, man, that looks incredible. You got like a little valley there. And this is a thing. This is obviously fake, but it's what it's going to look like. the John Madden Center with a bunch of helmets there. You can even see a part of the game from there. And this is Michael's photo.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, that's the side of the grandstand. And when we think of Big Sky, we're thinking about places that are a little bit slower pace. We're thinking Missoula, Montana. We're thinking Ogden, Utah. We're thinking all this stuff. And you're in Los Angeles. I'm in the Bay Area. And to have a Division I football program where we can escape the hecticness of where we are and go somewhere beautiful and serene and watch, big time Division I FCS football. You could go watch Montana play there. You can go watch the Vandals play there. And so again, when we see that the schedule comes out with the kick times and they're all late, this is the scene that you're going to get on a late October, early November day. So I'm chomping at the bit to get down there. I really think that it probably is smart to wait for the football center to be done. And, if I get to Eastern Washington and Northern Arizona like I plan to this year, next year, Cal Poly finished upgraded stadium and will be my last Big Sky game. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, dude, tell me that shot right there is not fire.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And what's funny too is there's a train track right behind the roadside there. And so it's like there's all kinds of intersections, and Cal Poly is like the most important thing in San Luis Obispo. And, all directions lead to the campus and Mustang Memorial Stadium.
Hell yeah, man. I love the Madden donation. I hope they really take it seriously for their athletics, for football and basketball, because I really believe that they can become like, I don't know why anyone wouldn't want to go. It's a good academic school too. So yeah, I think they have a bright future if they use that correctly. Folks, I do want to tell you, before we jump to the next team, that you are listening to the Stadium Heads podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And we're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes, Underdog Fantasy just launched their college football best ball product. We're going to be covering this on the College Football Experience. We're going to do some best ball drafts. First place wins $20,000. Plus, the higher lower pick on pick 8 allows you an opportunity to win 325 times your entry. You can now use specials and boost on all flexed entries as well. I can't wait to make a pick 8 over there. Don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. Sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCE SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCE SGPN. We're also brought to you by Circa Sports and Circa Millions. Yes, shout out to the Circa in Vegas. Was just there a week ago. Look, Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. And of course, Derek Stevens, hell of a good guy, the owner of Circa. He says, Circa contest, no rake. They're not in it for money. Circa Millions, pick 5 NFL teams ATS each week and compete for $6 million, or survive the NFL gauntlet to claim the $10 million prize. Sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th and use a proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com to save you $50 with the promo code SGP, so check that out. But if you don't have a trip booked for Vegas yet before football season, may I recommend Ultimate Contest Weekend. It's a great time to go out. You can hang with Stacking the Money Green and Ryan Real Money Kramer from the Sports Gambling Podcast and enjoy some open bar events at the greatest sports book in the world, August 22nd through August 24th. All right, back talking Big Sky football as we jump over to Eastern Washington in Roos Field. I've heard this. You look at it and it says, "Oh, that's Cheney, Washington." I've heard it's Cheney, Washington. Is that correct?
No, it's Cheney.
Cheney. See, I'm fucking all over the place here. Okay.
You get reminded of how wrong you pronounce things when you visit places. So that's just, say something, you'll get corrected very personally. And then they find out you're from California and then they don't like you even more, but I'll help you out before you go there.
Well, 57 years old. It seats 8,600 people. I've been watching the CFL and Vernon Adams just playing at a different level this year. He played at Eastern Washington. Obviously, Cooper Kupp, one of the better receivers in the NFL. This shot, when were you there for this? Because this is fantastic. Football weather, baby.
So last year, you were talking about the Albany, Idaho playoff game. That was on a Saturday night, and I had a flight out of Spokane Sunday afternoon, and Cheney is only about 20 minutes from the Spokane airport. And so I drove there right away in the morning. And, the playoff game in Moscow was in the Kibbie Dome. So, the elements didn't affect that. But when I pulled up and I saw this place, I just started firing off photos. And, it just made me automatically think, Eastern Washington, what if they happened to be in the playoff and they were hosting that quarterfinal game instead of Idaho? It would have been this kind of scene. And ultimate bucket list stadium head venture to be out there. So, but it was cool. Hard to walk around, not that much, but I did a whole lap and got some really good photos of Roos Field.
Yeah, and I guess you went there in the spring, perhaps, maybe also.
So also in spring 2023, I went to Idaho's spring game, and you fly into Spokane, and then it's about an hour and 20 minutes down to Moscow, and you just stop at Cheney. So I stopped at Cheney, I stopped at Martin Stadium and Pullman. They're all within about an hour and a half of each other. So, the snow photo is cool. You get to see the elements, but if it's covered, you don't get to see the red turf, which is what Eastern Washington is famous for.
Yeah, and I didn't realize they had a water tower that had the love. It's almost like Western Kentucky in that regard. A water tower with the Eastern Washington eagle up, the Inferno. Unique. Man, I mean, I'm surprised there's not a bigger stands, but I guess the enrollment's not big. I was looking at that. The enrollment's not super large, so maybe that comes out. They won the national championship in the past 15 years. So
in 2010, that's when they went. So the stadium was Woodward Field, built in 1967. And they had grass there all the way up until 2010. Michael Roos is a Eastern Washington alum. He played offensive line in the NFL, All-Pro for the Tennessee Titans. He was a major donor towards the stadium improvements and the turf going down. So 2010, the grand opening, they played Montana. And even though the stadium only holds 8,600, they got 11,702 for the opener. So there's a lot of places where you can stand, fill in the gaps. There's these grassy hills that are on either side of the home side bleachers, but it's really transformed. And as you mentioned, 2002 FCS national champions. So 2002, get a new stadium, playing surface, win a national championship. They really came on the scene right after that.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought it was more recently. Maybe it's just me getting old. But look, their enrollment is only 10,000 people. That's what I mean. Like their school only has 10,000 people, so kind of makes sense in that regard. Then, like this, got a little grassy knoll area. They got to get rid of the track, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And, we did earlier in the off season, we did the FCS Invitational Twitter poll on social media that was very popular. And it was amazing to me to see the automatic, I'm going to use an exaggerated word, disdain for tracks, even in some stadiums like Franklin Field, A.W. Mumford down at Southern. And so we don't want tracks. But we also understand certain things that certain campuses have limited room for another stadium. But in an ideal world, they're going to get rid of the track.
Yeah. I like that shot. That gives you a better idea of the stadium and the seating, because some of those shots, the further you go back, it looks worse in a way, like the seating arrangements, not the actual field. But this is a good shot right here, man. I feel like it looks pretty badass right here.
Yeah, and you get the big contrast with the weather. Obviously, you get the snow and the sun. But I might have sent you a shot from the field where you can just see the color turf right in front of you, and it's very distinct. But when you look here, even though there is a track, you don't see any seats that are really far off. So they're right close to the field, which we like as well.
Yeah, flexing the national championship there. Gotta love that. Also, this is not your photo that I just grabbed from a game, but it looks. See, that's lit, man. And then that is fantastic, man. Look at the fog. Can you imagine them playing a game that was the same weekend? Are you fucking kidding me? I did find one right here in the snow where I'm just like, come on, look at that right there. That's football, baby.
And that's Big Sky football. So, we're talking about what we saw at Cal Poly. They can offer you the hills and the sun. This is the opposite end of that. And there's 3 domes in the Big Sky, which are older and they hold a lot of value and they are almost have cult followings. But we really appreciate the people who are still playing outdoors. And this is, in 2022, I went to the FCS semifinals at South Dakota State. It was the coldest sporting event in the history of the state of South Dakota. It was -6 degrees at kickoff. It got colder. Like I couldn't feel my hands for 3 days afterwards. It was one of the funnest games I ever been to in my life. So, when we talk about potential teams that we want, bucket list games, I'm looking at the game, the opening Thursday of the year, because you try to take advantage of the FCS games that are played on weekdays. But in an ideal world, that's what's so great about the FCS. They're playing their playoff games on campus. If you can project a team, like I didn't go to South Dakota State during the regular season last year because it looked like they were going to be the best team and host the semifinal, which they did, and I went. So, but these are the kind of things where if you can somehow figure out a way to be within the vicinity of this when the weather is going to be bad, this is like ultimate football fan dream right here.
Amen. And look at that,
man. I didn't want to leave. I was like, I'm going to try to call up 22 guys and let's just play. Let's roll the ball out there and see what happens.
Right. It's right. Look, you got on the turf. One of the games, or one of the visits, I should say. I mean, I know some people bitch about this. It to me, if as long as you don't have a roof, I'm happy. You know what I mean? Like, sure, I want grass. I would like green grass, but I mean, whatever. You got to do things to separate yourself to be different than the others. I understand that.
And we've talked about this, that, we have a certain thing that we like, and we feel like we represent a lot of college football fans with outdoor weather and the cold weather and, the no track. But there is space in college football with over 800 college football programs for some distinct, unique features and variety, whether it's the colored turf, whether it's a unique stadium shake, whether it's waterfalls or whatever you want to have. We're not saying that every place has to be the same. So that's why we, Boise State started the standard, and there's a couple. We don't want every 129 FCS school to be going to colored turf. We don't want that, but there is space for it.
Yeah. Amen. Well said there. Look at some alums up there.
So I sent you this for a specific reason. So this guy's name is Lamont Brightful, and I played Little League with this guy. And
no way.
So I can remember this was in La Mesa, California. We had a softball toss, and it was 5th grade, and he was number 1 in the school. He threw it 132 feet, and I was second. I threw it 126, and he played Little League and with us. He won the Triple Crown. He was a military kid. Went to Eastern Washington, was a great kick returner, ended up playing on the Baltimore Ravens on their Super Bowl team when they beat the Giants, also played on the Miami Dolphins. And I lost track of his career just because, back then you weren't on the internet knowing what. I was playing a Madden Dynasty in college, and I was building a team, and it was getting to like the end of the draft, and I needed a kick returner, and I just sorted it by who had the best kick returner rating, and it said L. Brightful. And I was like, man, this could only be one person. It ended up being Lamont.
That's wild.
That's how I found out about his career. And so when I went back last year before the Idaho spring game and I took a lap around the track, I was like, wow. So I think he's a personal trainer up there. I haven't, obviously haven't seen him since Little League days, but it was cool to see somebody that I knew was a FCS retired, honored athlete at a big time FCS school like this.
Hell yeah, that's a cool story, man. And they've produced a lot of pros, man. Like, I mean, Eric Barriere, I know recently he was in the USFL, but I'm saying, as you see Jake Rogers there, the offensive tackle, obviously Cooper Kupp, Vernon Adams, like they've got guys too, playing professional football. There's another shot of the way the stadium will look full. It's a cool stadium, man. I'd like to get rid of that track though. Add more stands. Let's go. Let's get that going. Folks, before I jump to the next team, I want to tell you the Stadium Heads Big Sky Edition is brought to you by Rhythm. Look, you got to check out what they're doing for golf. All right. If you're not checking out the AI picks and props from Rhythm, then you're missing out. Well, I mean, they do more than golf, but with the British Open this week, they've been killing it. Not just outright winners. They got picks for top 5, top 10, top 20. You can use their AI caddy to get some great data insights. You can even customize your own golf betting model using Rhythm's tools. So claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. All righty, next we go to the Kibbie Dome in Moscow, Idaho. Seats 15,250. I am in the minority here. Look, I can appreciate like the Houston Astros. I'm sorry, not the Astrodome with the Houston Oilers is what I meant to say. I thought that was super unique, but it's Houston. It's like super hot. You know, I'm like, okay, I can give that a pass as a dome, right? But this one, my flaw is this. You have Martin Stadium right there within like a 10-minute drive. Washington State and Moscow are right there. I've been outside the stadium. And I just think when I see like the super like cold weather teams, and it's funny, I got in an argument with someone online about this, with like, why do they have a dome? And it's like the winds are too bad. I'm like, well, it's fine for Washington State. That's 10 minutes away, man. You can't tell me that that's not a factor. Now I will say this, for domes, it's fucking original, and I can appreciate that. But I'd be lying to you if I came on here protecting this thing, because I think you should cut the roof off. Tell me about, I know you like the stadium. Tell me about your travels here and what makes it special to you.
So in the intro, I talked about how the Big Sky is going to push the boundaries of what the criteria for what stadium has like. And sometimes people will tell you, the reaction from people will tell you everything you need to know. And so, you know, the nickname of the Kibbie Dome is the 8th wonder of the world. It started out as an outdoor stadium. I don't think I don't know if there's a stadium with a more interesting backstory than this place. So they had Neal Stadium, 1969. It got condemned for soil erosion, made the bleachers unsafe, and then somehow it actually also caught fire. And they ended up building what they called Idaho Stadium. It was this stadium outdoors. Just imagine those bleachers and no roof. And about 4 years into it, in 1975, they got approval to build a barrel arched wooden roof and they added vertical walls behind the bleachers, and they put this in there. So this is not a dome in the sense of, you know, a circular round Astrodome, as you mentioned. This, I mean, it kind of gives off like airplane hangar vibes. And, you know, the side walls are made of concrete, and the goalposts are bolted on to the concrete walls, and you can see the roof right there, and it's totally different than everything. But I will tell you, you know, you send me a link to the ESPN top 25 stadiums. I couldn't tell you how many comments that, you know, invalid because it didn't have the Kibbie Dome. This is just the cult following behind this place. And I will also say, you know, me and you are in California, and we know the stadiums around here. To be a California person and start going to these dome stadiums, it just presents this total opposite world that is totally foreign to you, but somehow you kind of dig it a little bit. So I'm not saying that you're wrong at all. I understand, because I went to that playoff game. You just showed those Eastern Washington photos. It was snowing outside the Kibbie Dome, and, you know, the stadium head mind in me was like, cut the turf off, open it up, let's play. But this place has the biggest cult following probably in all of college football.
Yeah, and I don't understand that, and that's what I argue with people all the time. Now, I'm not saying for a dome, I'm on board with it being one of the cooler domes, but I just think you have Martin Stadium 10 minutes away.
It has nothing. I don't think it has anything to do with the it's just because it's unique. That's why people like it so much. I don't think you're going to get anyone defending the layout. There's like 5 or 6 yards behind the back line and the wall. You got to walk around the outside. There's some things about like layout wise and navigation wise that I don't think anybody is going to say, oh, this is exactly how we want anything in college football. But it just makes people, it sparks imagination and they're fascinated with it. So I don't think you're going to get anyone defending the Kibbie Dome with the things that are trying to squash the arguments that you're presenting. I think they just are fascinated with it, and that's enough for them.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you're going to do a dome, this is probably the coolest dome. So I'm trying to be positive in that regard. And I hope, but I still would never have this anywhere close to my list of top 25 stadiums. But I mean, it is unique. It is cool. It's got personality in that regard for a dome for me. I just don't think football should be indoors. So it's tough for me.
Yeah. Well, again, that's if we're talking about the red turf and there's some space in college football for red turf. There's 232 Division I schools, and I think we have 6 or 7 on-campus domes. Okay, so we've talked about in the NFL that half the league is got domes, and they're the controlled climate football league. So I feel like there's space for this, and I'm telling you, we gotta do a doubleheader. Me and you, we gotta go to a day game at here and a night game at Martin Stadium or vice versa. But I will tell you, just within the years, I want to point out a couple of things about the stadium. Number one is you can see up above those in the end zone, up above that screen. In 2009, they added these translucent panels that they let in light during the day, and it totally changed the look of the stadium. It did have this, like with the old AstroTurf and no natural light coming in, it gave a vibe of legit airplane hangar. But they opened that up and it changed everything. Obviously, they got new turf, they got new scoreboards, and people, again, they love. This was that photo right there, the snow photo right there, walking out. It has aura, right? It has aura and it has vibe and it has a cult following. And sometimes you got to have the boots on the ground to see it. And we got to get you up there one of these days to check out the kids.
I've been outside the stadium. I just didn't go to a game. Like I went right around where this is. But here's my thing though. Like I remember as a kid, and I don't want to beat this dead horse too much, but I'm saying, I remember like one of the first experiences was watching. My dad got cable. We had this thing called HTS Sports in DC, and I got the Apple Cup. I think it was '92, Washington State versus Washington at Martin Stadium in like a blizzard, and it made me and my brother Washington State fans for life. Right? Like we're like, what? Where is this? And that made us. So when I see snow like this, and I think of what could be if you didn't have that. But once again,
I get it. Yeah. Hey, we're gonna disagree on this, and it's not a problem. I'm just telling you 2 things. Number one, you could poll college football fans, and they're gonna say they love it.
I agree. I've argued with them all. Yeah.
And then Colt Brennan, 2006, he took his Hawaii high. Came and played a big high scoring game here, and people were like, "Man, this is one of the best scenes that we've seen." John Freeze was the NFL quarterback. He lit it up there, and
Mark Slareth.
Stink, right? So they used to have huge rivalries with Boise State and all that. So, and the only reason, but one of the reasons they went back down to FCS from FBS is because of the capacity of the Kibbie Dome. Like it's not really expandable. There was talk about possibly doing it, but I think that Idaho knows their sweet spot. I think they recognize the following and the the way people feel about this place, and they're not changing anything. And I will tell you, I've been there multiple times. I've been inside for a game, and to me, it feels special. So we got to get you from outside looking in. We got to get that going.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about the Corner Club, dude.
So those Mark is the owner, and it's just like a must stop in Moscow. And the night that I went to the playoff game, I slept in my car, and it was snowing just like that. It wasn't fun, but this place was open till 2:00 in the morning, jam packed. Like there was a line waiting outside, and you eventually get let in. They got Rainier, which is Mount Rainier type of beer. They're big Kraken fans now because there's a hockey team in close proximity. That's America, a United States team. So it's there's Vandal memorabilia all over the place. Whether it's Mark Schlereth, where it's Jerry Kramer, who played on the offensive line for Vince Lombardi teams, John Freeze. You got old players coming in, and this is just, if you make the pilgrimage to Moscow, the Corner Club is an absolute must. And so I've been there a couple times, and it's a great time.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. I love the old logo too, man. We got to get the old logo going. Because that is fire. Look, next up we go to Pocatello. Another dome. The Holt Arena.
Repeat the whole conversation we just had.
Yeah, I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best here. 54 years old. Merrill Hodge has been on the College Football Experience and the Sports Gambling Podcast with us, and he's a grad of Idaho State. It is 54 years old. This is one of the older domes, if memory serves me correct. 12,000, and it does have a classic look to it. I'll give it credit on that regard, but I still just like, you're in Idaho, play football in your awesome elements that you have. I'll drop it at that. Tell me about your travels.
You're not going to get any disagreement from me. Okay. So, but what I tried to point out is the same thing when we talked about the Carrier Dome, and they built that in 1980. This is the Kibbie Dome was built in 1975. Holt Arena is the oldest on-campus dome stadium in America. It's the second oldest dome stadium anywhere behind the Astrodome. So we're not talking about people who made a bad decision 5 years ago. We're talking about people that made this decision 50 years ago. And so,
and what's up with the seat color there of like 5 different colors, like the rainbow there?
So this is from 2019. They did a major renovation in 2023. So they kind of put a white top on the dome. They changed the colors to black and orange to match up a little bit more. But this dome, it inspired a lot of other domes. There's the UNI Dome, Northern Iowa. Obviously we talked about Northern Arizona, but it's, so people saw it, and, it's an interesting backstory because they did have an outdoor stadium, and when they were talking about building this, they ended up asking students if they would fund it, and the students allowed an increase in tuition for a total of $2.8 million, and only raised tuition per semester $12, and they paid off the whole stadium with cash. So like a triumph to be able to get it. But there's unique things. So what you're showing here is like a dugout, right? It's like a dugout on the sidelines, and
dude, there's not much room either. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and you got the students hanging over there yelling. I went to, it was 2019. It was probably the earliest FCS game that I went to, and it was a Thursday night against Western Colorado. And shout out to my guy Trey Harmon and Jonathan Match. They let me come early, and I caught a couple passes on the field, and then I got to come back. You mentioned Merrill Hodge, Jared Allen, Minnesota Vikings, and Kansas City Chiefs defensive end. He played there. So, there's a lot of history here. You showed a picture with the 1981 national championship when they won that. So again, it's a place where, when you think about where you're going to take a trip in for college football, you're not going to be saying Pocatello, Idaho, but this is something that you want to check off and just see that you win. And, maybe Colby Dant is going to go there and watch a game, and on the way out, you're going to go, I feel exactly the same as I did when I walked in as I do walking out, but maybe you won't.
Fair. I do like that big ass bangle on top of there too. That is cool, and it does look like straight out of like 1970. So even that looks like, even if this is 2019, it still look like 1970 to me. I can dig the personality of it. I'll say that.
And when I went to Idaho in 2018, I went to a football game during the day and I went to a basketball game at night. And it was something for a person from a bigger city going to a place and almost pretending you're a resident of this small town for a day. And that's what you do when you go to these places, a lot of these FCS stops. And so Pocatello, it would be another place. I mean, I went to this game and I thought, man, look at the price of real estate out here. Look, you could go to this and watch football all the time. So it's to expand your mind and check it out. So again, I'm not going to change your mind. And if anyone is proposing a dome right now, I'm there protesting it happening. I'm not going to go protest domes that were built 55 years ago.
Sure. Yeah. Although I have one on this list that we'll talk about in a bit. Next up is my heaven. All right. I had the opportunity to go to this fine place when Eastern Washington was I saw a top 10 game here while I was doing comedy 15 years ago. It was awesome. I was in town for like 5 days in Missoula, and it was just the whole town centers around Montana football. Washington-Grizzly Stadium, 38 years old, seats 25,217. Look, I was there probably mid-November, if not early November. It was freezing, but it was awesome going to the game. I felt like my seats were actually pretty close to here, where the shot is exactly from, maybe a little bit to the right here on that other side. But this is college football to me. This is, like I said, there's not like, I'd put this pretty high on my fucking list. I love, and look, you can't see this right now in this dark shot, but I'm gonna show you that there's a gigantic mountain with, and a lot of times they'll have the Washington or the Montana. There it is. It's up there. The M. Tell me about your travels to Missoula, because ain't no one fucking with this stadium. All right.
So there's a reason they call this the Mecca of FCS. Okay. Cause this is everything that you want. What makes the Big Sky such a cool and interesting conference is the contrasts that are available all within the conference. So one day you're coming to watch here, and then the next day you're going to the Kibbie Dome. You're doing all this. But I've been to Missoula a few times. This photo is from the 2021 Brawl of the Wild. At the time, it was the record-setting crowd to ever see a game at Washington-Grizzly Stadium. I was one game away from reaching 130 out of 130. All I had left was Utah. And I pushed Utah back 1 week to go here and then go to Utah. That's how much that I wanted to go to this place. And it was cold, but who cares? And, it's the largest on-campus FCS stadium in the country. Both Yale and Jackson State are not directly on campus, and they are bigger, but they're not on campus. Everything that you want. You talked about the M. They call hike the M. I sent you a couple photos that I actually hiked the M and took photos looking down at the stadium. But the crowds are electric. You mentioned everything.
The whole town talks about it nonstop.
That's all it is. And
yeah,
and there's a reason too, because their record at Washington-Grizzly Stadium is 233-35 all time, and that includes the playoffs. That's a winning percentage of 869. Like, you do not go and win in this stadium, and it's intimidating and isolated, and great football teams and passionate fans. It's perfect.
It really is, man. And I got those photos on the hill in a second here, but this is college football. This is why it's the greatest sport on the planet, man. And yeah, let me look at this shot. Look at this shot. Look at those mountains way back there. That looks like it's got the snow. It's just, the stadium is perfect. It's perfect, man.
Well, when we talked about New Mexico last week, we were talking about having like a fondness for the state of New Mexico. That's what the FCS is because we don't think of like, there's no pro teams in Montana. There's no pro teams in Idaho. There's no pro teams in, in some of these states that we're going in Utah. There's no pro football team. So this is the biggest thing that you could get in Montana. And, I talk about in the college football playoff, a lot of time it's Clemson, it's Alabama, it's Oklahoma. They don't have pro football teams in their state. So when you're a young kid in middle school and you get a visit from a linebacker who plays for University of Montana, and he says, you could be like me, like that's what you aspire to. So these kids, they get that experience and they grow up here and they go to the stadium and it's what it's all about. And, some of us that aren't from that region, we're discovering it a lot later than we should have probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is when you hike the hill, I imagine. It's a fantastic shot, man.
Yeah. It's about a 35-minute hike and you get up there and you can see all of Missoula. Is beautiful.
Absolutely awesome, man. And yeah, it's just a champion center here. YouTube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. Shout out to the 869 people watching this right now. Hit that like and subscribe button. Obstructed view alert. Tell me about where you were for this one, or what what it was like with this, and what's the percentage on this?
Oh, well, this is, you could see most of the field, but you can't see anything in the end zone. So, end zone is like 9%, which is not very low. This is actually like after this game, my calendar had already came out. So I put this and I said, this is going in next year's calendar. So you mentioned when we were going through the list of my most recent games, the Furman at Montana playoff game. And that was where Junior Bergen ran 2 kick returns back for a touchdown. Furman they dominated everything else, but it was 28-21 with 4 seconds left and they hit the quarterback and he for Furman and it lobbed up and the tight end caught it and forced overtime. It was one of the best games that I ever saw. And if Furman won, they would have actually hosted NDSU in South Carolina, which, I would have been there in a second. But walking around the stadium, this is one of the additions. If you go back to the very first photo that you showed, you can see these little, I'm going to wait for you. Keep going. One more. Right there.
Okay.
Right there. Okay. So if you look in those end zones, you see those corners where those like almost platform seats stick up.
Yeah.
So those were additions, and if you go on the side of those, you're going to get a little bit of an obstructed view. But even the Mecca of FCS, the perfect college football stadium in the perfect location, has an obstructed view, which we don't mind at all.
Yeah, and shout out to Garrett Winkler, who says that campus, Michael, motivated him to start going to more college football games. Was able to see KU's, K-State's, Oklahoma State's, and Toledo's last year. That is impressive.
Beautiful. And, I haven't watched a college football Saturday at home since 2016. And, part of what I try to talk about is once you get out there and you're in the crowd and you don't have an announcer telling you all these things you already know and you can take in the game the way you want, there's no replacement for it. So, Garrett, I'm glad that, I could inspire you, and hopefully I'm planning on, I think, Kansas State, September 13th. It's a Friday night game versus Arizona State. I'll be there. And Toledo also is playing a MAC game sometime in November. So hopefully we'll run into each other at one of those games.
Hell yeah, man. I loved my time at Washington-Grizzly. Next, we jump over to Bobcat Stadium in Bozeman. I have not been here, but holy shit, do I need to get there because I love this thing. 53 years old, 20,767. I mean, come on. I got to get here after my travels to Montana were so great. I got to check out the rival stadium in the Brawl of the Wild, which is like the best name for any rivalry in college football, by the way. And this place, there's a shot you have now. These are all fantastic shots. Once again, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. But there's one that I just love. All of these are fire. When was this? Were you in the spring here?
So this was, I want to say 2022. My mom was tracing family genealogy and it ended up something in this, I forget the name of the town, but it was like 4 hours east of Bozeman. And so we flew into Bozeman and, I said, hey, we could track family genealogy. I have to stop at Bobcat Stadium. So this was a campus visit that I forced my mom to join me on.
Love it. Love it. Get them educated. This stadium is beautiful, man. Like I really want to, this is high on my list of all college football stadiums that I haven't been to. Look at those mountains right here. I mean, and like tailgating setup. This shot, there's like this and another one this one specifically though. I was looking at this and I was like, this is a gorgeous fucking stadium, man.
Yeah. And man, so Washington-Grizzly rightfully gets all the praise, but you could make an argument and people are going to say, that it's not an argument, but this is an amazing stadium too. And it's right up there. And, you showed one of the shots with the mountains in the background. It has views of the Bridger, Highlight, and Spanish Peak mountain ranges. And this stadium has come a long way. I mean, it didn't have that impressive look. There's something about that press box too. It's just, it just is like has presence, and then you see the mountains in the background and you can see the basketball arena right there. This was in 2022. And even they've got a bigger scoreboard in place now. This photo right here is from the 2020. If you go back one right here, this is from the 2021 semifinals versus South Dakota State. And Montana State was ranked 8th. And the previous week, they went down to Sam Houston. We talked about it last week when we did the Conference USA. Sam Houston won the spring championship. They were undefeated in the fall, had won 22 straight games. And Tommy Mellott, quarterback from Montana State, he's a strong running quarterback, went there and just ran through Sam Houston State, came back here. South Dakota State had played in Sam Houston in that spring national championship. They beat South Dakota State, and then they went and played NDSU tough, but Mellott got hurt early. But this game right here, it was just as much fun as going to the Brawl of the Wild in 2021 at Washington-Grizzly, walking around there with the snow. They got the Bobcat, I think it was like the Golden Collection beer. You can walk around and tailgate with everybody. I mean, it looks awesome, and it lived up to the way it looks in this picture.
Hell yeah. LFG in the chat saying Montana State, the most underrated setting in college football right now, similar to the Sun Bowl. Love it.
What's funny is so that 2021 Montana State game that I went to, Game Day was talking about coming, ESPN, and they ended up going to Ohio State, Michigan State, and the score of that game at halftime was 35-0. And I tweeted out a video from Washington-Grizzly and like Janine Edwards with ESPN is like everybody's like ESPN fucked up. So the next year they made sure and they came to Bozeman for the Brawl of the Wild in 2022, and that's when they set the record. The stadium holds about 20,000, and they got 22,000 in the stadium for that game. So they tried to make up for the mistake, but Game Day has or Montana State has a visit from ESPN Game Day, which is pretty cool.
Hell yeah. And look, there's one other shot I want to get to here. This one's fire too, but look at that mountain right there in the fucking end zone, man. Like you score a touchdown, it just looks like the Call of the Wild or some shit. It is awesome. This is, to me, I got to get there. I gotta get there because it just looks like one of the coolest settings.
Yeah, and that's like a surreal moment. I'm just a fan, and things are going good, and I get to go to games and stuff. But standing on the sideline and looking at that view, it's surreal. It's like holy shit, like I didn't know that I always wanted to do this until I'm standing right there. So
yeah,
it's cool.
And tell me about this.
So the reason I sent you this is because towns will jack up the price of hotels on big games. And if you try to stay at a hotel in Bozeman, Montana on a normal day, you're talking about $70 to $100. but they were hosting the semifinals, and every hotel was like $400. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm not going to sleep in the car this time. And this was a little cabin, and I got my car stuck in the snow pulling up there. I had to wait and shovel it out, but it was like $110, and it was a 1-bedroom. But the funny thing was there was no bathroom inside. And so I think I sent you an interior. I don't know if you did that, but yeah. So that was the whole thing. And there was a floor heater by the bed, and I swear it never got over like 66 degrees. It wasn't warm in there. And every time I had to take every time I had to take a piss, I had to walk outside, and there was a little like almost like an outhouse, but like a high-end outhouse, and that's where I went to the bathroom. So
I dig it, man.
They gave me some negative review on Airbnb because I didn't clean up right or something. I'm like, fuck you, man. You know, I didn't know there wasn't going to be a bathroom inside of the place I was staying, but it was either $400 at Best Western Bozeman or $120, and you got to, you know, put on your shoes and go walk in the snow to take a piss. So it was cool.
Fantastic stuff, man. All right. This one bothers me the most out of really any one in the entire, maybe in the entire country. I've been to Walkup Skydome, Northern Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona. Love Flagstaff. Go there frequently. 47 years old, 11,230 people it seats. So, was there, recently went to the Skydome, somewhat like the past, I don't know, year and a half. And I walked in the snow to a game, from like downtown, which it's not that long of a walk, but it's a decent, I don't know, 45 minute walk. This one drives me crazy, man, because on that walk, you go past their football practice facility, right? And look, I know this looks abstract. Cool. You got that going for you. But Flagstaff's an awesome fucking town. It could be Boone. If they just, the practice facility is way better than the fucking stadium. I don't know. I mean, I love this town, but I'm so out on the stadium, dude. Like walking past the practice facility, I was just, it made me go crazy. Cause I was just like, I can't believe they have this field right here, and I'm going to this. They do have a cool ass lumberjacker though, like right outside the stadium, and you see him in this shot in the back, yellow, just gigantic lumberjacker. But yeah, I'm out on this shit. I know people on the internet love this one too, and I will argue this one even more passionately than, like I said, I've been to a game here, but I'm out on this. You know what I mean? I will never be on board on this one. And I, just for this sake, I show you the practice facility, but this is not in the snow. It was there in the snow. And it's like, this is right across the fucking street, man. You have this right across the street and you choose that. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you guys. Your thoughts on the Walkup Skydome?
So you've seen a game there and I have not. I visited there in 2017. You mentioned that giant lumberjack. So I was trying to get statue photos. I was like in the infancy. I was like, how the hell am I going to get a statue photo with a 75-foot lumberjack? It didn't turn out that good. We've evolved since then, but I did go inside the stadium, and you know, I do a lot of tweets where I show either the progression of the stadium or the old stadium. Today I did one about Pitt, the old Pitt Stadium, and that's, you know, people really wish that there was still Pitt Stadium and not playing in the Steelers Stadium. Their old stadium was called Lumberjack Stadium, and it's pretty close to where the practice facility where you're talking about is now. There's not any great like landscape photos of Lumberjack Stadium from back then, but it has the same location, the same view they were talking about. They use it as a track now. So again, I haven't seen a game here. I'm looking at week 1 possibly to go there, and I really want to check it out. But yeah, I mean, it's the same argument that we had with the other ones, but I think that the difference is the climate in Flagstaff is not like Phoenix because of the elevation. So you can play outdoor games in September and October, and maybe you're going to have the occasional cold game in mid or early November. It's possible, but we're not talking about it's 110 degrees on September 1st at Tempe at Sun Devil Stadium. It's a lot different in Flagstaff. So I understand what you're saying completely.
The reason why this one drives me crazy. So I've been to Moscow. I've never been to Pocatello, but I've been to Moscow, and like they don't really have from the parts of Moscow I went to, you wouldn't get a scenery like this, right? Now it's still nice. Moscow's nice, but like this, if they have this stadium built right there outdoors, I think this would be a top 25 stadium in the country. And I just think here's another shot. I think when you go back to the front, like this, it's literally right across the street from this thing. Like you're walking past this. I don't know which direction we're in right now. It might be behind the camera right now. But my point is that you have just beautiful scenery. I love Flagstaff as a city. I think it's fantastic. And it was such a, I got snowed in there once going cross country. I've done some stand up there and stuff too. And I love Flagstaff, and it's just like they're doing themselves a disservice though by not having their football team outdoors. I also think, it could be their advantage to their advantage too if they were to have it outdoors. But yeah, I don't know. Like I've not to beat a dead horse, but I've argued a shit ton with people because I know the world loves this. I feel like the world loves the stadium for some reason.
It's the fascination with the contrast between everything else. Okay. So it's the same thing with the other places. And we talked about Holt Arena kind of spawned some clones, and this is one of them. We talked about the elevation in Flagstaff. It's 6,880. The only one in Division I that's higher is Wyoming. And we know how much we enjoy going to War Memorial Stadium and being outside and doing that. So, broken record, but this happened in 1977. We wish that it didn't happen. And it's really hard to be at that practice facility or at the old Lumberjack Stadium, which is now the track stadium, and not think about what it would be like there. So I don't blame you. I'm hoping to, like I said, I'm hoping to go there week 1. I'm going to try to document everything for everybody, whether, it's the game photos, the exterior stuff. And we'll let, if people haven't seen it for themselves, hopefully the boots on the ground will help people form a more formative opinion of how they feel about it.
Yeah. Flagstaff's a great city though. So if you can dig the dome, go out there, check out Flagstaff. It's a great city. Northern Colorado, Nottingham Field, Greeley, Colorado. I've been here, but just not for a game. There was no game. So I just went to the stadium to check it out, but seats 8,533. Recently, Ed McCaffrey was the football coach, got fired, but he was the football coach there. Talk to me about your travels to Nottingham.
So I've been on campus once or twice, and then last year finally got to a game. They were playing at 1 p.m. against Idaho. And then Colorado was playing their homecoming game against Oregon State at 8 p.m. So I was able to do both. And, later in the year, it's hard to get 2-for-1s. And so I was fortunate to get there. But, built in 1995, so a little bit more recent, 4,780 foot elevation. So it's almost a mile high. They replaced Jackson Field, which is now their baseball facility. There you see 4780. That's Wikipedia letting me down like usual. 4658 is what it really is. Oh man. But, so I went there last year for a game. You mentioned Ed McCaffrey. It didn't work out during this era, but there's 2 things about the stadium that we wish were different. Number 1 is we wish that it didn't have a track. And number 2, it doesn't have any lights. And so, it's for funding. They're trying to get more funding, and if they can get more funding, then they can put the lights in there. And so they always are playing day games. You're not going to see any night games at Nottingham Field. But, when you go up to this part of Colorado, you got Greeley is very close to Fort Collins. You could do a 2-for-1 there. I did a 2-for-1 for Colorado State, so it's conveniently located, and it's not getting that like hustle and bustle feel that you get in downtown Denver. It's a suburb, nice little quiet place to go. So
it's a great town. Yeah, it's a great town. I stayed and checked out the downtown. I enjoyed it. A great little college town. I really enjoyed the city. It just needs some work. You know, we got to get rid of the track with like some lights. They got the scissor lift in this one. Maybe Ed McCaffrey. When you went, was this Ed McCaffrey or was this?
No, this was after.
Because you went last year, right?
Okay. Last year, yeah.
Okay.
So scissor lift is for I'm guessing the all 22 camera probably.
Yeah, the Brian Kelly thing. Get up in that scissor lift now. Yeah, I mean, love the cannon. Good work with the cannon. Big fan of having the cannon in the end zone. Look, they were FCS not that long ago, right? I mean, I'm sorry, D2 not that long ago. If memory serves me correct.
Yeah.
Kyle Sloter, who played for the Vikings, was at Northern Colorado. So they're developing this thing. It's got some work to do, but I dig it still. The town is cool too. So get out there and check out Greeley if you get the chance. Oh, obstructed view alert too.
This is a classic right here because I mentioned that there's no light pole. So what is this pole? It's a speaker pole. Okay. And so I get into the weeds of a stadium. So you can see the pole coming up through the bleachers, and they, partly to secure the bleachers, partly to secure the pole, but they put it up through the bleachers in the second to last row and not the last row. Well, what does that create? It creates the ultimate obstructed view seat. And so, I happened to be sitting next to a bunch of students, and they just watched the whole pose thing and they thought it was hilarious. But, when I had my calendar, this was the only FCS one in the calendar. So, but if you would tell people, oh, there's a pole in the way, everybody's going to assume it's a light pole, but this is actually a speaker pole coming up through the second to last row and not the last row. So, some engineering lapses of judgment when it came to this design. Let's just say that.
Either way, very hilarious stuff. And what's the relevance here on this? I could take a guess, but I want you to explain.
Look at the fucking price. Okay.
Yeah. As Californians, man, you're like,
that's
what?
2023, $2.53 a gallon. And I get off the airport at, Oakland, and it's like $5.79, like right away. Yeah. And I smelled it. It doesn't smell like, inferior gas. It seems like the same gas. So, that's a travel thing. You make the same jokes. Why does it cost double where I live? I wish I could pack this up and take it in my suitcase. Why are you complaining about the cost of living when it's, all that sort of thing. So anyways, it's just, there's a reason I'm taking a photo. I'm sending this to my family. I'm like, we got to get out of California. Look at this. So.
Amen. I mean, look, I can remember a time where I went to, this is like right around 9/11, I guess, maybe a couple months before 9/11. I was in North Carolina. I went to the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and I remember gassing up for 65 cents a gallon.
Man.
And I was like, this is unreal. Cause even coming from the DC area, I was like, what? And then it was like, but out here where it's like $7 here sometimes, you know what I mean? It's insane.
It's like a slot machine. That's what I call it. They just pulled the slot machine, whatever numbers come up that day, that's what they charge for gas. $8.43. Yeah. Sure, no problem. Whatever. We got to drive. So this is when Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, some of these Midwest places, you just see it and you're like, man, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. So normally college football traveler guys not taking photos of gas station pumps, but there's a reason right here. So
folks, look, you're watching this on YouTube, and shout out to, we have 972 people watching right now. So I'm grateful that you're watching, but if you can just sit back, because on the audio side, we're going to switch to the B side. So make sure you subscribe to the Stadium Heads podcast, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. If you're listening to this on the audio side, this concludes the A side. So check out the B-side, and yeah, thanks for listening to the Stadium Heads Big Sky Edition. All right, we are back on the Stadium Heads, getting ready to talk Portland State Viking football. Hillsboro Stadium, Hillsboro, Oregon, 25 years old, seats 7,600. All right, we got to talk a lot about this one. Where did they play it before Hillsboro? I should have done this homework.
Yeah, so I did a lot of homework for this just because it's unfortunate. So they played at a place called Providence Park, which is it's a half mile from campus.
Is that still there? Is that still there?
It is. So I guess we'll get into so Hillsboro Stadium is 13 miles west of Portland State University. And a common theme that we've talked about through many episodes is in a big city, it's hard to get a stadium. If you knock down a stadium, there's lack of real estate or whatever. So Portland State does not have an on-campus stadium, but they played at Providence Park, which was built like 90 years ago. And it used to be, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, Multnomah Stadium. And it is now home to two MLS teams, the Portland Timbers and the Portland Thorns. And so sporadically, they, over the last few years, have had scheduling conflicts with the soccer teams. And it eventually got to the point where the combination of having scheduling conflicts with two MLS teams and the cost of renting the stadium, I read that at Providence Park, it's like $32,000 a game, and at Hillsboro Stadium, it's like $11,000 a game. It caused conflict, and in 2018, Portland State apparently got tired of dealing with it and just chose to make Hillsboro Stadium their home stadium permanently.
Yeah, I got issues with this. Providence Park, you said it was called, right?
Providence Park, that's the name of it now.
That is a historic stadium. I know you said it's been there forever, but if you look throughout like the history of big time college football games and even some NFL, believe it or not, they had some NFL games. I don't know if they were exhibition games. I was like doing a deep dive on that thing a couple of years back, and I was like, whoa, they've hosted some. I want to say it was like maybe preseason games like every year or something for a while. This is a bummer, man, because you look at Oregon and Oregon State's success within the state. Portland State is where Mouse Davis invented the run and shoot. You know what I mean? Like Neil Lomax and June Jones and where there's quarterbacks, and you think about some of their history. They've put some good players out in the NFL. Jerry Glanville coached here, and you're like, God, like how? Because some of these shots. I know from here, it's like, okay, it doesn't look that bad, but trust me, folks, it's the other side where you're going to sit there and say, what are we doing here? This. So it's just bleachers on one side. You got a baseball diamond over there. I mean, I like when you have the baseball diamond on the field, but this is weird, man.
It wasn't built as a football stadium. I mean, this is like a multi-sport sports complex, and out of necessity. We've talked about it. My term is stadium purgatory. You don't want to be in stadium purgatory because it impacts your program, and if you have hard choices, I want to make sure that that we're clear about this. The FCS is working with much less resources than all the previous programs that we talked about. They can be more forceful, they can raise more funds. And so when you talk about the difference between renting a stadium per game for $32,000 versus $12,000, well, it doesn't sound like that much, but when you're not working with as much funds, it's hard to do it. I mean, they talked about their money games where they go play somebody and get $500,000. Like that's enough to fund all the other sports there. So it's tough to see a conference where you got the Montanas and the Montana States and some of these schools that are UC Davis, they're flowing with money. And then you got other ones that are not in the same financial stratosphere, and they're trying to make the best of it. So it's really hard to be in a very urban densely populated city without your own on-campus stadium, and you have to make choices. So this is not ideal. They've tried to make the best of it. And, it does lean into the Pacific Northwest with the overhangs. That's a common theme. I went there. The fans were bundled up and they were, had hot chocolate and beers and they were enjoying themselves. But in the perfect world, they're going to be closer to campus. And it's unfortunate that they have to defer to MLS teams and try to save money because of the way Providence Park has prioritized their tenants.
I just have a lot of questions here. Like, okay, the state of Oregon, to me, if you watch some of those MLS games, they're fucking great fans, right? If you watch Oregon, the Ducks or the Beavers, they have great fans. If you watch the Portland Trailblazers, they have great fans. Their enrollment, according to Google here, is just 27,229 people. That's a shit ton. That's a big university, man. I don't understand how they don't have something closer. And I don't understand how they don't have better fan interest based on that, because they're passionate about every other sport. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I also get mad when, we talked about Ryan Field at Northwestern. They're building a whole brand new stadium and they're enclosing a lot of it because the neighbors don't like noise or they don't like light. When you play 5 home games per year, tell everybody in the neighborhood to deal with it for 5 times a year, So if I don't know soccer as much, but I'm sure they're playing, 10 or 15 games. These guys are talking about playing home games. These guys are talking about playing 5 home games over a 3-month period, and you can't find a spot for them. I mean, this game that I went to right here, 2022 against Sac State, this was a weeknight game. So they're willing to play on weeknights. So let's find a space for them to play closer to campus, whether it be on a Friday night or whether it be on a Saturday at noon, and then you play the soccer game at night. So I agree with you. I did some research. I know a little bit about it, but it just sounds like they're in stadium purgatory. And instead of trying to thread the needle at Providence Park, they decided to make this place their home, and that's where they're at right now.
Yeah. They got work to do, because I just think you should be closer to campus. With that much enrollment, you would think the students would want to go there. I don't know. Wishing them the best, Portland State folks. Look, I want to tell you folks out there that the college football experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast, the Stadium Heads podcast, is part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Make sure to check out this week's featured podcast, the MLB Gambling Podcast. Giving you all the picks you need to crush the MLB season. Plus, check out the college football experience. It's knee deep in previewing all 134 FBS college football teams. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and the SGPN app. Back on the Stadium Heads podcast, Big Sky edition, as we jump on over to Sac State. Hornet Stadium, Sacramento, California, 55 years old, seats 22,000. This is a program that's kind of emerging. They beat Stanford's ass last year, and then they had I think a perfect regular season the year before. And I know they used to be the home for the CFL Sacramento team, as well as the World League. I believe the Sacramento Surge, maybe, I think. Tell me about your travels here, because, well, it's got the track, but man, and I was listening to like some type of, I don't know if it was a Sac State pod or a Big Sky pod, where they were talking about some big alums that would throw in a bunch of money if they made the if they jumped to the FBS. Some rich alums. But tell me about your travels here, man.
Well, they should just throw in the money now.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Forget all the strings attached. So I live about an hour and 15 minutes south of Hornet Stadium. I've been there a couple times. Most of these night photos are from one of the best college football games that I've ever been to, which was 2022 playoffs versus Incarnate Word. Final score 66-63. I want to say it was something like 1,400 combined yards. Lindsey Scott Jr. was the FCS Player of the Year and he came in and, Sacramento State had like 740 yards, recovered 2 onside kicks, and they still could not stop the guy. But it was a great crowd. It was a great scene. It was like Pac-12 after dark, but it was like Big Sky after dark. I know everybody was watching that game till like 1 o'clock in the morning. And so it was a great experience. And, the stadium has evolved a lot. It's not, it was built in 1969. And you mentioned it hosted the first CFL game ever on American soil in 1993. The Sac Gold Miners beat the Calgary Stampeders. The highest crowd they ever had, 26,000, was the Sacramento Surge of the World League, which you mentioned. And, they also hosted the Olympic track trials in 2000, 2004. So that's part of the reason the track got updated. But, you mentioned that they have really come into their own in the program. From 2019 to 2022, take out the COVID year, they were 23-1 in Big Sky play, which when you think about being dominant, you're not going to name Sacramento State. They kicked ass for 3 straight years, and they ran into South Dakota State in the playoffs, who came in and beat them. And then the game I mentioned, Lindsey Scott Jr. put up 66. So they've accomplished a lot. Coach Taylor, he leveraged his success into the job at Stanford, and they didn't have it as successful as a year last year, but their track record has been really good, and they have an opportunity to keep it going.
Yeah. And I think Andy Thompson's the coach there now. Did a good job last year considering taking over for Troy Taylor. I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's one that could be really good though. I think if you move around the track, and I wonder if it's expandable. That's what the gist I got from the pod I was listening to, but I don't really know.
Well, there's no seats in either end zone, so it's possible to do that. And you also, you could move the bleachers in closer, but a lot of times you got to lower the field. But I will tell you that the crowd was great. The students showed up. A lot of times when you do the FCS playoffs, all the students on break, they went home. They didn't, they shouldn't. They were great. It was a great atmosphere for the game. So, but I agree. Ideally we're going to get rid of the track, but there's a reason that they upgraded the track, and that was to host the Olympic trials.
Yeah. And their football program's on the rise. They were D2 not that long ago. I feel like they're another one like Northern Colorado that has jumped up. Look at the old Hornet logo there, and you got the scissor lift. We got the scissor lift and the scoreboard.
Well, the score, look at the score, 66-63.
Yeah.
I mean,
every defensive coordinator, every defensive coach is just sitting there saying, when's the flight? But hey,
maybe the most exciting game that I've been to. And you mentioned where's the flight. Actually, the next day I was catching a 1 p.m. game at Colorado Mines, and this game went till 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's in Sacramento. I was flying out of Oakland. It was about an hour and 30-minute drive. Like, I didn't sleep. I left this game at 1 a.m. I drove straight to the Oakland airport. I went through TSA at like 4:30 in the morning. I plopped on the plane, fell asleep for like an hour and a half, pinball myself off the plane, and drove from Denver to Golden and watched that game. So crazy travels, but man, you to see this kind of game, 66-63, I think is the highest scoring game I've ever been to. It's worth it every time.
Yeah. What is we got street tacos for sale here?
So they have, like, similar to Hawaii, they let vendors with trucks pull up on the open parts. So, it took a photo of the gas station with the 285 or 258 gas. Well, here's the opposite, right? You got quesadillas with dipping for $25. And
God.
asada fries for $20. And so, that's a game where you're happy you got your protein bar and your couple other things in your pocket, because you are not, if the ticket is $20, I'm not buying carne asada fries for more than the damn ticket. Let's just say that. So.
That is hilarious. Yeah, I couldn't imagine paying that much for a quesadilla.
We just all stood there like Nelson. We just stood there like Nelson Muntz on The Simpsons, just pointing and laughing, haha, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, exactly. Sac State I like their future though, man. I feel like they've been getting better and better and taking it more seriously. So go Hornets. Folks, before we get to UC Davis, I want to tell you that the Stadium Heads podcast is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. They just launched their college football best ball product. First place wins 20 grand plus the higher lower pick 'em for pick 8 allows you an opportunity to win 325 times your entry. Best Ball Mania is live with $15 million in prizes as well. You can now use specials and boost on all flexed entries. So sign up. And when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to get your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Yes. Look, Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. Yeah. Which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. So look, I mean, I'm one. I was looking at tickets to take my wife to the Dodgers game. I was even considering jumping up to the Bay, hitting a Giants game or maybe an A's game with them, final season. So I'm going to do this at some point. What am I going to do? I'm going to use that Game Time app. And I'm going to customize my spot, and they offer really cool things like that. Also, they keep you informed, like last minute ticket deals, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy MLB tickets for every kind of event in your area. Views from all seats in the venue too. Like on the app, you can see it there. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, all that good stuff. So check it out, folks. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the redeeming code SGPN for a $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create an account, redeeming code SGPN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we are jumping over to Davis, California. UC Davis Stadium, 17 years old, and seats 10,743. Hey, I haven't been here. Never been to Davis, California. Looks kind of cool, man. I mean, I'd love to know the story on the previous, because I know they had Ken O'Brien, and I know Dan Hawkins played fullback for them way back in the day. He coached for them recently. Tell me about your travels to Davis, California.
So I went there. It was in the FCS Spring League. And when the season started, there was nobody in California allowing fans at all. And this was actually the first college football game in 2021 that allowed fans. So that previous photo, you saw those little cardboard cutouts in the end zone. That's what they were, the COVID time. So even though this is 2021. So this was a regular season game against Eastern Washington. And it was, you mentioned Eric Barriere, he's the quarterback, and it was a great game. And, UC Davis has got a ton of money. They're intertwined with the health system up there. This stadium was built in 2007, so fairly new. It's actually expandable to 30,000 seats. So you can see the grassy berm areas in both end zone. Those are obviously the spots that they would fill them in for the seats, but they've been successful, even though they're a younger program. You mentioned some of the other younger programs as well. And when people talk about candidates jumping up to FBS, UC Davis is one that they mention all the time. But I think that, you look at Cal Poly, it has a setting. You look at Sac State, and it has, it's nearby, but it has the track, and there's some shortcomings there. This one not only looks nice the way it is, but it has a ton of potential as well. So I really like their stadium.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. I even I included, that's a nice shot. I like this grassy area too. Yeah, I put this one there. This is not your shot. This was, it just shows how many people sitting there catching a game. What's not to like about it? And UC Davis Stadium, Health Stadium, they say. It's cool, man. It's cool, and they've been a successful program, man. It's not. I mean, They haven't been dominant. That's another shot that I found online that just from the top. They've had a lot of winning seasons lately though, man. And so they're building good culture there. Now it's just, can they ramp it up and become the next big thing in the FCS? Tim Plow, the new head coach this year.
You've talked to Coach Hawkins. You talked to him about his time at UC Davis before. What do you say?
Yeah, well, he played there too. Well, it's weird. I didn't get I know he retired. I'm wondering if he got pushed out the door because I didn't ask him that, but I did say enjoy retirement, and he goes, "Well, I'm going to be coaching soon." And now I just saw this week he took a position at Idaho State, but yeah, like it seemed like he still had gas in the tank. So it almost made me think that he might have been forced out of there. Tim Plow takes over, who was recently the Boise State offensive coordinator a few years back. He got fired there for that, but he's a former UC Davis Aggie himself. Chris Peterson too. I mean, like I said, their history is pretty strong here. It's just that I'm eager to see what they can turn this thing into.
Yeah, and I would love to go back for a non-COVID game. And if you're talking about Traveler, Sac State, and UC Davis are within 30, 40 minutes of each other, so that's an easy 2-for-1. And the record crowd that they had at the stadium was very recently, 2023. They played Eastern Washington, and we mentioned the stadium holds around 10,000. They got 14,724. So that photo that you showed with the people on the seats, it must have been filled the whole way. So yeah, you think about like the best teams in California with potential. This place has a lot of money, and the stadium is expandable, and not the sky's the limit, but they could jump up in the ranks of the Big Sky very easily. Yeah,
100%. 100%. Yeah, I dig it. I think it's got a cool look to it too. It's kind of a, like the whole bowl area. It's got a cool look to it.
It gives you like an old fashioned vibe a little bit, but with like modern amenities. Yeah,
exactly. Well said. Folks, before we get to our final one, which is the Weber State Wildcats, I want to tell you that the Stadium Heads are brought to you by Rhythm. If you're not checking out the AI picks and props from Rhythm, you're missing out. They just dominated the British Open, and their college football product is about to drop. You can customize your own betting models easily using Rhythm's tools. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. We're also brought to you by Circa Survivor and Circa Millions. Yes, Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. Imagine the regret you'll feel if you win your office survivor pool, but you didn't enter the Circa Survivor one. And may I remind you again that Circa contests have no rake. Don't have a trip booked yet for Las Vegas before football season. I challenge you to go out for Ultimate Contest weekend, because that weekend's always great. If you go, you can hang out with my pals Ryan, Real Money Kramer, and Sean Stacking the Money Green from the Sports Gambling Podcast, and enjoy some of the open bar events at the greatest sports book in the world, August 22nd through August 24th. You could sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th to enter, and you could use a proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com that'll save you $50 with the promo code SGP. So check that out. All right. Back and ready to talk Weber State Stewart Stadium, Ogden, Utah, 71 years old, seats 17,312. I actually had to do a deep dive on when the stadium was like, it's funny. Like the Wikipedia page was like vague. It's like sometimes in the 50s. So then I had to like Google the first time, and then I went down a rabbit hole. But I remember this because I was reading. I don't remember if I was reading a old story on John Madden. I don't know if it was Eric Coryell. I don't know if it was Joe Gibbs. But they had a game when they were at San Diego State, and I think Bill Walsh might have been on that staff at some point. I would need to find the article, or the whatever I read it in. But I remember them playing at Weber State. And John Madden and the staff gets there for a game. This is probably like 1965 or something, or 62 or something. And it's snow, and they're at San Diego State. San Diego State's playing at Weber State. There's a ton of snow in the stadium, and Madden has the whole staff, or maybe it was Coryell has the whole staff go do snow angels in the field to act like they're not intimidated as San Diego in Ogden, Utah. So I dig the history there. It's like you can just picture, even though those guys have all left us, them doing snow angels. And when you see the stadium, I remember also Stone Labanowitz, shout out to Stone, friend of the program. His game-winning touchdown in the playoffs there as a road team with the Salukis. This is a beautiful stadium, man. And I like, my only thing would be is like, can we ditch the track? Because I see a ton of potential here.
Yeah, and they just upgraded the stadium. They put in a new track and did the roadside bleachers. So I don't think they're going to be ditching it anytime soon. But this stadium has everything except the track, So, but the views are incredible. The stadium is located at the base of the Wasatch Mountains. You mentioned the vagueness. It said that they've been playing on this site in some rudimentary form since the 1950s, but it actually, the bleachers were constructed and officially in 1966. But I've been there for spring game. I've been there for campus visits, and then this photo,
which one?
The snow
this
photo.
One? Oh,
the
okay.
snow photo. That's from 2019 Montana Weber State playoff game. And, I only dipped my toe in the FCS a couple times prior to that spring 2021 season. I went to a game at Norfolk State on the same day that I went to Old Dominion. I mentioned earlier when we talked about Idaho State, Western Colorado came in on a Thursday night. But this was the first, I really want to go here because I want to see this place. And it was playoff game, Montana at Weber State in the snow at night, Friday night, ESPN game. And it was amazing, man. This really influenced me. It really had a profound impact on priorities with travel. And, that we've talked about this on previous shows, that the Utah Murderers Row, when you got Utah State, Logan, you go a little bit south, you got Ogden, Weber State, you go a little bit south, you got Utah and Salt Lake, and then a little bit below that is Provo, and they're all amazing. So this just happens to be the FCS version of a scenic, cool, outdoor, cold weather Utah football stadium.
Yeah, and I was just checking their enrollment. Over 24,000 people go there. That's because part of me was like, I wonder how remote this is. I've never been to Ogden, Utah, but man, I tell you this, watching a couple playoff games here, it has me wanting to go there. And then your photos only hammer that home. I mean, look at this. I would love for the track to go, but like I said, it's just a beautiful setting though, man.
Yeah, and for me, we've talked about on previous shows where I'm trying to revisit some of the ones that I went in the FBS during COVID. There's some in the FCS I want to do the same as well. Jackson State, getting that, it's the highest capacity FCS stadium. They lead the FCS in attendance. I've seen 3 games at the Vet. I want to go back there. Holt Arena, we talked about, it's been renovated since 2019. When I went, I want to go there. This was kind of, as I mentioned, kind of in the infancy of the FCS travels for me. I want to go back day photos. I want to go back and get night photos, sold out crowds. So I agree with you. This is a destination place, and you could 2-for-1 it with Utah State. You can 2-for-1 it with Utah if you can time it out right. So it's one of the cooler, I'm going to call it underrated FCS stadiums in the country.
Yeah, agreed. Shout out to LFG in the chat. Yeah, a few years ago, Weber did have it rolling under Jay Hill. He left their sitting head coach position to be the defensive coordinator of BYU. That's where he's currently at. So it's a big year in Weber. They open up at Washington. We will see how they do in that. But I want this program. I like this program a lot, at basketball and football, and I want this school to continue to flourish. So love the press box too.
No, it has a cool look all the way around. And, you can go back and find some older photos, probably around the time of the John Madden story. It looked nothing like it. And so there's a football facility in one end zone, the Youngberg Football Center in 2019. They put that there. They did the press box in 2001. You saw the new turf. They got the new track. So they're definitely investing in their program. And they have been a player. You know what? They've had 4 or 5 losses and still made the playoffs just because all their losses have been quality within the Big Sky. You lose at Montana, you lose to Montana State. Like, those are nothing to be ashamed of because those are very competitive. So they've been a playoff team. You mentioned Stone. Shout out to Stone with the last minute win there. They just got to get it cooking again.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, it's an old ass stadium too. Like, can't you picture Madden out there doing a snow angel? A young Madden out there doing a snow angel. Absolutely fantastic. All right. And that concludes the Big Sky Conference. We have our top 5 that we do. But the stadium's gorgeous, man. I mean, all these shots just look fire. Look at it. It's got you can do some sledding while you're watching the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's got so much potential, man. Like it's just a very cool backdrop to it. Yeah, I love that W in the press box, man. It's a cool press box. Top 5. We got that right here. This is Michael's top 5. Washington-Grizzly, no particular order. Oh shit, I butchered the Big 12 thing. Kibbie Dome, Bobcat Stadium, Stewart Stadium, and UC Davis Stadium. Yeah, I mean, I kind of would have guessed. I guess the only surprise to me was the UC Davis one for you. I feel like the other 4 I thought you were going to have in your top 5. Were you surprised? What's that?
Which one do you think that I would have had in the place of UC Davis?
I thought Cal Poly. Which I thought that one, would be in there with that backdrop and stuff. But and when you look at mine, you'll see Washington Grizzlies, my number 1. Stewart is my number 2. I actually think I would move Bobcat after seeing your photos. I think I would move Bobcat to number 2. Stewart to number 3. Mustang Stadium number 4. I dig that backdrop. And number 5 would be UC Davis Stadium. Are you surprised by mine? You're not surprised by mine because I don't like the domes. But yeah. Chalky,
yours
right?
don't surprise me at all. No, but they're good choices, and I felt very confident in my top 4. I felt those were easy, and then UC Davis. I think maybe I want to see a game at Cal Poly. I think that will hopefully give me that game experience. Holt Arena is another one that I probably could have put in there. So that I was very solid in the top 4. I think Washington Grizzly is incredible. Bobcat Stadium is incredible. The setting we just talked about at Weber State is amazing. The Kibbie Dome just has this aura and just cult personality, if you want to put it. And then UC Davis, I really just look at the quality of the stadium and the potential and those grass areas, and it just is cool. So we got 4 out of the 5 that are the same, so we're not that far off.
There we go. Well, this is a conference when you really think about it, where like there is a gap. You know what I mean? Like after seeing Portland State and I wish them the best with their future with whatever they choose. And seeing even Sac State, which I like, and seeing Northern Colorado and stuff, but there's a big gap to me. Between the really good ones, the mediocre ones, and then the ones that need a lot of help to me.
There's a fictional conference. It's called the Snow Belt Conference, and it's the top half of the Big Sky and the top half of the Missouri Valley. And
buddy.
the Missouri Valley is the same with the haves and the have-nots. You know, you got the South Dakota State, the North Dakota State, the Northern Iowa, the North Dakotas. You got those in the top, and then you take the top of the Big Sky. And so whether that, you know, people, I'm not saying they should jump, but everybody said if the FCS ever wanted to make a conference jump, the Snow Belt Conference is what they would do.
I love that name. Did you come up with that?
Somebody else smarter than me did it. Yeah. So
Snow Belt.
Google Snow Belt and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Snow Belt Conference. I am all on board. Folks, that is our show. We will be back in a week with the SWAC, correct, Michael?
We could do the SWAC, the Ivy, or the Missouri Conference.
Ooh. Dealer's choice, man, for you. You've been to all these places. You choose right now. On air. So let's do this.
I'll choose the SWAC. I feel like when we did the FCS Best Stadium Invitational Tournament, we had Jackson State win. Alabama State has an incredible stadium. Prairie View has a great stadium. The Hole at Grambling, A.W. Mumford at Southern. There's some great stadiums there. Florida A&M, Bragg. I do want to get the Ivies. There's only 8 in there. So maybe we only got a couple weeks left here before we're going to start doing season and stadium travels. I think we could do maybe 2 or 3 more. So let's do the SWAC. And then after that, maybe the Ivy or Missouri Valley.
All right, folks, you heard that. SWAC next week, same time. They have some fire stadiums. He just hit on a bunch of them, but once you see the photos, you'll be sitting there like, whoa, I didn't know this. Give Michael a follow, like I said, at CFB Campus Tour on Twitter. I really can't encourage that enough because I think it's like one of the best follows. That's how I became friends with him, essentially. 1,042 people watching right now. Please, if you can, hit that like and subscribe button because I have this out on multiple platforms. One day it's only got to be one platform, so you want to get over to YouTube, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. Get on over there, hit the like and subscribe button. Also, podcast wherever podcasts can be found. If you can, and look, if you can go to iTunes and give us a 5-star review, that helps a lot too as well. Hopefully you dig the show. Once again, I highly recommend watching the show because I think the photos also help sell how great it is. And maybe we can do what Garrett, maybe you listening out there will be the next Garrett Winkler, where you say, hey, Michael turned me on to this. I'm going to all these stadiums over in my vicinity, wherever I live. And boom, next thing you know, you find yourself going to these games and you're saying, this is awesome. FCS college football is awesome. Maybe I never checked it out before. I really think college football is the greatest thing we have. Let's go. I'm on Twitter at @TheColbyD. Make sure you check out the college football experience as well as the FCS college football experience. And check out the Sports Gambling Podcast. And I'm excited to talk the SWAC next week, folks. Until next time, this is the Stadium Heads Podcast, Big Sky style. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
I've lost my mind. I'm just ahead of my time. My brain is insane. I know I'm out of my mind. My mind lost control. The mind tricks the body thinks the mind's crazy.
Rockin' at first was hell without rocker. I pop up in spots, they screaming, you clockwork. I'm dilated, the fuck off, I ain't doing it. Before weatherman dropped, they thought I might have ruined it. Elusive, I just deny rumors. Smile and give punchlines with dry humor. See what the future brings. In 03, I got on MTV. Time is bugged, that's the message I'm sending them. Sign with Slug and survive beef with Eminem. I mention different events in my sentence. senses. It's dangerous to reminisce or remember it. Still it's evidence. Check 1 2 1 2. Less punches and spit what I've been through. I stayed here, got booed, but kept rapping. The same year got sued by Kurt Natman. I've lost my mind. I'm just ahead of my time. My brain is insane. I know my body lose control. The mind tricks the body thinks the mind is crazy. Look, I know where I come from and know who I started with, but trying to split a check 8 ways, that's the hardest shit. And I ain't starving shit, I had to get my own. So I ain't trying to hear that bullshit you on. Like you love my brothers, my crew more than I do. Anytime I make a change, I gotta run it by you. I wish I would give a fuck. I was broke in the hood on the porch and some chucks. The first one saying Mid-City on these records. And make the world respect it. Cloverdale, 1300 block moving. Sunshine bomb bitches, that's how we do it. And what you doing, man? You shoveling snow, throwing coke up your nose. You in love with the blow. Oops. Think I'm dissing my own crew, but I love the living legends. I was talking about you. I've lost my mind. I'm just ahead of my time. My brain is insane. I know my body lose control. The mind tricks the body